The Kepler 442b expedition logs would later be classified as essential reading for all xenobiological interaction protocols, but at the time of recording, they seemed like nothing more than the desperate documentation of a man who refused to accept his fate. Dr. Marcus Chen, geologist and structural engineer, had not volunteered for a solo mission to the remote exoplanet. His assignment came as punishment, a career-ending exile disguised as scientific opportunity, after he had publicly challenged the Terran colonial authorities' decision to abandon the Outer Rim settlements. The man who destroys his weak self can never be destroyed by others, Chen had written in his personal journal on Sol Day 1 of his arrival. It was a phrase his grandfather had taught him, carved into a wooden plaque that had survived 3 generations of the Chen family. Now, 47 light-years from Earth, those words would prove prophetic in ways no human could have anticipated. Kepler 442b stretched before him like a hostile canvas painted in shades of rust and shadow. The planet's surface, scoured by winds that could strip flesh from bone, offered no obvious refuge. The atmospheric processors had failed during the colonial setup phase, leaving behind a world with breathable air but little else to recommend it. Most of the prefabricated structures lay in ruins, twisted metal monuments to humanity's overconfidence in their ability to tame any world they encountered. Chen stood before the wreckage of what was supposed to have been his base camp, his environmental suit's display showing external wind speeds of nearly 200 kilometers per hour. The supply drop had scattered across 30 square kilometers of broken terrain, and his extraction date remained 3 years in the future, assuming the colonial authority remembered he existed at all. Status report, Day 1. He spoke into his recorder, his voice steady despite the circumstances. Primary shelter destroyed, secondary equipment scattered, the geological survey equipment remains intact. Beginning immediate assessment of subsurface stability for emergency shelter construction. What Chen discovered in those first desperate hours would reshape everything humanity thought they knew about planetary engineering. The planet's surface might have been uninhabitable, but beneath the hostile exterior lay a geological marvel, a network of interconnected caverns formed by ancient lava tubes, some large enough to house entire cities. The rock formations showed signs of unusual mineral composition, with veins of metallic ores that seemed to pulse with their own internal energy. Chen's training had prepared him for resource extraction and basic shelter construction, but his true genius lay in seeing possibilities where others saw only problems. Each obstacle became a component in an increasingly complex solution. The scattered equipment wasn't debris, it was building material. The hostile surface conditions weren't barriers. They were protective measures that would keep his underground sanctuary hidden from casual observation. The first shelter was crude, barely more than a reinforced cave with basic life support. Chen carved it from the living rock using mining equipment salvaged from the scattered supplies, working 18-hour days while his body adapted to the planet's slightly higher gravity and longer rotational period. The shelter's walls wept condensation that he collected and purified, creating a closed-loop water system that would become the foundation for everything that followed. Day 15. His log entry recorded. Primary shelter operational. Water reclamation at 93% efficiency. Beginning expansion into adjacent cavern system, the rock formation here responds unusually to thermal treatment, appears to become more workable rather than brittle. Investigating mineral composition, what Chen found defied conventional geology. The planet's core had cooled in a pattern that created natural stress points throughout the stone, places where carefully applied pressure could split massive sections along predetermined lines. It was as if the planet itself wanted to be carved, shaped, and molded by intelligent design. Working with hand tools and salvaged equipment, Chen began to expand his simple shelter into something more ambitious. The work consumed him utterly. Each day brought new discoveries, new possibilities, new reasons to push deeper into the planet's hidden architecture. The cavern system extended far beyond his initial surveys had suggested, branching into chambers so vast that his lights couldn't reach their far walls. Some passages led to underground rivers, others to deposits of rare minerals that glowed with bioluminescent properties. Chen mapped each discovery, creating detailed schematics that would have impressed the colonial authorities' best engineers. But it wasn't just the physical work that transformed him. The isolation, the absolute necessity of self-reliance, and the daily confrontation with challenges that would have broken lesser men forged something new from the Marcus Chen who had arrived on Kepler 442b. The man who had once relied on committees and protocols and support structures learned to trust nothing but his own judgment and capabilities. Day 47, he recorded. Major breakthrough in excavation techniques. The thermal stress patterns can be predicted with remarkable accuracy. What would take industrial equipment months to accomplish can be done with portable tools in weeks. Beginning construction of primary living complex. Estimated completion 6 months. His estimate proved conservative. Working with an efficiency born of desperation and fueled by discovery, Chen carved out spaces that would have impressed the architects of ancient Earth. The living complex expanded into workshops, laboratories, hydroponic gardens, and storage facilities. Each room was precisely engineered to maximize both function and comfort, using principles of design that combined cutting-edge human technology with adaptations inspired by the planet's natural formations. The hydroponic systems produced food with yields that exceeded anything achieved in controlled Earth environments. The mineral-rich water and unique atmospheric conditions created perfect growing environments for modified crops that Chen engineered using equipment salvaged from the Biological Survey Kit. Within 6 months, he was not just surviving but thriving, producing surplus food that he preserved using traditional techniques adapted for the planet's conditions. The isolation that might have driven another man to madness became Chen's greatest teacher. Without the constant input of human society, without the pressure to conform to others' expectations or limitations, he began to see solutions that would never have occurred to him on Earth. The underground complex grew organically, following the natural patterns of the cavern system while incorporating design elements that served multiple purposes with elegant efficiency. By the end of his first year on Kepler 442b, Chen had created something unprecedented. A completely self-sufficient underground facility that not only met every human need, but exceeded them. The complex generated its own power using geothermal systems he had devised, processed its own air and water through biological and mechanical filters, and produced food in quantities that could have supported a small colony. Day 365. His log entry noted with quiet satisfaction. Anniversary assessment complete. All systems functioning at optimal levels. Surplus production in all categories, beginning Phase 2 expansion, manufacturing and processing facilities. The weak man who arrived on this planet no longer exists. What remains is something the colonial authority never anticipated. Chen's transformation wasn't merely physical or technological, it was philosophical. The daily confrontation with challenges that offered no compromise, no committee solutions, no bureaucratic workarounds, had burned away every trace of dependency and self-doubt. Each problem solved with his own hands and mind added another layer to a growing conviction that human potential was vastly underestimated by human institutions. The manufacturing facilities he constructed during his second year represented engineering achievements that would have required teams of specialists and months of planning in any normal human settlement. Working alone, Chen designed and built precision equipment for metalworking, electronics fabrication, and advanced materials processing. The planet's unusual mineral composition provided resources that, when properly processed, created alloys stronger than anything in the colonial authority's materials database. His workshop produced tools that made his construction work increasingly efficient, which allowed him to build better workshops which produced better tools in an ascending spiral of capability that seemed to have no natural limit. Chen documented each breakthrough, each innovation, each moment of transcendence where human ingenuity merged with alien resources to create something entirely new. Day 512, he recorded. Completed fabrication of advanced excavation equipment. Expansion rate increased by factor of 4. Beginning construction of deep access tunnels to reach lower cavern systems. Preliminary surveys indicate network extends at least 15 kilometers in all directions. This world is not a prison. It's a canvas. The deep tunnels revealed wonders that challenged every assumption about planetary formation. Vast chambers lined with crystalline formations that resonated with harmonic frequencies when touched by sound or vibration. Underground rivers that flowed in defiance of gravitational logic, carrying mineral-rich water through passages that seemed to follow mathematical rather than physical principles. And everywhere, the peculiar responsiveness of the stone itself, as if the planet welcomed his efforts to reshape its hidden architecture. Chen's complex evolved from mere survival shelter to something approaching art. Each new chamber was designed not just for function but for beauty, incorporating the natural formations into architectural elements that served both practical and aesthetic purposes. The living spaces achieved a harmony between human needs and alien environment that created psychological effects Chen hadn't anticipated, a sense of belonging, of home, that exceeded anything he had ever experienced on Earth. By the halfway point of his exile, Chen had constructed something that defied classification. It wasn't simply an underground base or survival shelter, It was a new form of human habitation that demonstrated possibilities no one had imagined. The complex incorporated advanced systems for manufacturing, research, food production, power generation, and waste processing, all integrated into a design that worked with, rather than against, the planet's natural characteristics. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of Chen's achievement was the man himself. The bureaucrat engineer who had arrived on Kepler 442b as punishment had evolved into something unprecedented, a human being who had destroyed every limitation, every dependency, every trace of the weakness that had characterized his previous existence. The man who emerged from that transformation could not be broken by isolation, defeated by impossible odds, or diminished by any force external to his own will. Day 730, Chen's log entry reflected a quiet confidence that would have been unrecognizable to anyone who had known him on Earth. Assessment of personal development. All psychological and physical parameters exceed baseline human norms. The weakness that once defined my limitations has been systematically identified and eliminated. What remains is pure capability, unlimited by external circumstances or internal doubts. Phase 3 expansion begins tomorrow. Construction of the deep Metropolis. The underground Metropolis that Chen envisioned would require resources and capabilities far beyond anything he had yet achieved. But, by this point in his transformation, such challenges had become simply another form of opportunity. Each impossible task was nothing more than a puzzle waiting for the right combination of intelligence, determination, and refusal to accept limitations. Part 2, The Architecture of Transcendence. The metamorphosis of Marcus Chen reached its culmination in the construction of what he privately termed the Deep City, an underground metropolis that stretched through multiple levels of the planet's hidden cavern system, incorporating technologies and design principles that pushed the boundaries of human engineering into realms previously considered impossible. What began as desperate survival had evolved into conscious artistry, with Chen serving as both architect and craftsman of a vision that existed nowhere else in human space. The Deep City's foundation level occupied a natural amphitheater 8 kilometers in diameter, its walls rising in terraced formations that Chen had shaped using techniques that combined precision engineering with an intuitive understanding of the planet's geological patterns. The central plaza featured a crystalline fountain that channeled underground streams through carved channels, creating both practical water distribution and acoustic effects that filled the vast space with harmonic resonances. Chen's workshop complex occupied the city's second level, a maze of interconnected chambers that housed manufacturing capabilities rivaling anything in the colonial authorities' industrial facilities. Here, advanced fabrication equipment of his own design produced everything from precision electronics to heavy construction machinery, all powered by geothermal systems that tapped into the planet's core energy with efficiency rates that exceeded theoretical maximums. Day 943, his log entry noted with characteristic precision. Completed installation of Level 2 manufacturing systems. Production capacity now sufficient to supply material needs for a population of approximately 5,000 individuals. Beginning fabrication of specialized equipment for Level 3 construction. The scope of what becomes possible continues to expand beyond all previous projections. Level 3 represented Chen's boldest architectural achievement, a residential district designed to house a population that existed only in his imagination, but built with attention to detail that anticipated every human need for community, privacy, beauty, and functionality. The living spaces incorporated lessons learned from his own adaptation to underground existence, creating environments that felt spacious despite being carved from solid rock, naturally lit through fiber optic systems. Though each residential unit was a masterwork of space utilization and psychological design, Chen had spent months studying the effects of underground living on human psychology, developing architectural solutions that eliminated the claustrophobic and isolated feelings typically associated with subterranean environments. High ceilings, carefully designed air circulation, and acoustic properties that provided both privacy and community connection created spaces that felt more like mountain retreats than underground bunkers. The hydroponic agricultural systems on Level 4 produced food in quantities that seemed to violate conservation of energy principles. Chen had discovered that certain combinations of local minerals, when processed through biological filtration systems he had developed, created growing mediums with properties that accelerated plant growth and enhanced nutritional content. His gardens produced yields per square meter that exceeded Earth's best agricultural regions while requiring minimal external inputs. Day 1097, Chen recorded. Agricultural systems now producing surplus sufficient to support population of 8 to 10,000 individuals, with nutrition levels exceeding Earth optimal standards. The implications for human colonial expansion are profound. Proper understanding of planetary resources can eliminate food security concerns entirely. Level 5 housed what Chen considered his greatest intellectual achievement, a research and development complex that incorporated laboratory facilities for chemistry, biology, physics, materials science, and engineering disciplines. Working alone, he had recreated the essential capabilities of entire university research departments, driven by the simple necessity of understanding and improving every system within his expanding metropolis. The research complex yielded discoveries that challenged fundamental assumptions about resource management and technological development. Chen's isolation from human scientific community had forced him to question basic principles that were accepted without examination on Earth. Working from first principles with alien materials and conditions, he had developed alternative approaches that achieved superior results with simpler methods. His materials laboratory produced alloys that combined properties previously thought to be mutually exclusive. Metals that were simultaneously lightweight and incredibly strong, flexible yet resistant to deformation, conductive but also protective against electromagnetic interference. These materials made possible construction techniques that allowed for architectural designs of unprecedented scale and complexity. The physics laboratory led to Chen's development of power generation systems that approached theoretical efficiency limits. By combining geothermal extraction with electromagnetic induction principles adapted for the planet's unique mineral composition, he created energy systems that produced more power than his expanding metropolis could consume, with surplus capacity that suggested possibilities for large-scale manufacturing or even space-based operations. Day 1258, his log entry reflected growing awareness of implications beyond his immediate situation. Energy production now exceeds consumption by factor of 12, beginning consideration of space-based applications. The principles demonstrated here could revolutionize human space colonization, assuming proper implementation and understanding. Level 6 represented Chen's venture into pure research and development laboratories dedicated to understanding the fundamental properties of his adopted world and developing technologies that could transform human space colonization. Here he investigated the planet's unusual geological formations, the properties of its unique mineral compositions, and the possibilities for technologies that could be developed nowhere else in known space. His xenogeology research revealed that Kepler 442b's formation history included events that created mineral structures with properties that seemed to border on the impossible, crystals that stored and conducted energy with near-perfect efficiency, rock formations that became more durable when subjected to stress, underground water systems that seemed to self-regulate temperature and mineral content according to principles that conventional chemistry couldn't explain. Working with these materials, Chen developed technological applications that pushed the boundaries of human engineering into realms that would have been dismissed as fantasy on Earth. Energy storage systems with capacities that rendered traditional power infrastructure obsolete. Construction materials that self-organized into optimal configurations when subjected to specific conditions. Manufacturing processes that required minimal external energy inputs while producing outputs of unprecedented quality and precision. The biological laboratories yielded insights into planetary ecosystems that suggested new approaches to human adaptation and colonization. Chen discovered that the planet's apparently hostile environment included biological systems that were simply operating on principles different from Earth normal life. Understanding these principles allowed him to develop hybrid technologies that combined human engineering with alien biological processes. His hydroponic systems evolved into something approaching ecosystem engineering, creating closed-loop biological cycles that processed waste, purified air and water, produced food, and generated useful biochemical compounds with efficiency levels that made traditional industrial processes seem primitive. The underground metropolis achieved complete environmental sustainability through biological systems that improved performance over time rather than degrading. Day 1421, Chen recorded with evident satisfaction. Biological systems integration complete. The city now functions as a single, self-regulating organism that maintains optimal conditions automatically. Human habitation requirements are met through natural processes that require no external management or inputs. Level 7 housed Chen's most ambitious project, a transportation and logistics network that connected all levels of the metropolis through systems that combined human transportation technology with adaptations inspired by the planet's natural formations, The network included high-speed transit systems, material handling equipment, and communication networks that allowed instant coordination between any points within the complex. The transportation systems represented engineering achievements that would have required massive teams and budgets in normal human construction projects. Chen designed and built magnetic levitation systems using locally produced materials, creating transit networks that moved people and materials throughout the metropolis with efficiency and comfort that exceeded anything in human space. The system operated silently, efficiently, and with capacity far beyond the needs of a single occupant. His communication networks incorporated breakthrough applications of the planet's crystalline formations, creating information transmission systems with bandwidth and reliability that surpassed the colonial authorities' best military communications equipment. The networks provided instant data transmission throughout the metropolis and included capabilities for long-range space communications that could potentially reach Earth across interstellar distances. Level 8 represented Chen's preparation for possibilities that extended beyond his individual survival. Facilities designed for manufacturing spacecraft, advanced electronics, and technological systems that could support space-based operations or eventual expansion to other worlds. Working alone, he had created production capabilities that rivaled major industrial installations while maintaining the precision and quality control necessary for space-rated equipment. The spacecraft fabrication facility produced vessels designed according to principles Chen had developed through combination of human engineering with alien materials and local conditions. These craft incorporated propulsion systems, life support capabilities, and manufacturing equipment that could establish similar installations on other worlds. Chen's designs suggested possibilities for human expansion that could proceed independently of colonial authority support or approval. Day 16012. His log entry noted with characteristic understatement. Spacecraft fabrication capabilities now operational. Current production schedule could deliver exploration vessel within 18 months. The implications for independent human space colonization are significant. By the end of his second year in exile, Chen had created something that defied every assumption about human limitations and possibilities. The underground metropolis incorporated technological capabilities that exceeded anything in human space, achieved through methodologies that combined scientific rigor with intuitive adaptation to alien conditions. More importantly, the project had been accomplished by a single individual working in complete isolation from human society and support systems. The man who had designed and built this marvel bore little resemblance to the bureaucrat engineer who had arrived on Kepler 442b as punishment for challenging authority. Chen had systematically eliminated every trace of dependency, self-doubt, and acceptance of external limitations that had characterized his previous existence. What remained was pure capability. Human potential realized without compromise or constraint. The metropolis itself stood as proof of concept for human space colonization approaches that could eliminate dependence on Earth-based resources and support systems. Every system within the complex had been designed and built using local materials and energy sources, demonstrating that proper understanding of planetary resources could support human civilization at levels exceeding Earth normal standards. But perhaps the most profound achievement was the transformation of Marcus Chen himself. The underground metropolis was not just an engineering marvel, it was the physical manifestation of human potential unleashed from conventional limitations. Chen had become something unprecedented, a human being who had transcended every weakness and constraint that normally defined the boundaries of individual capability. Day 1750, his final log entry of Phase 2 recorded with quiet confidence that would soon astonish beings from across the galaxy. Metropolitan construction complete. All systems operational at optimal efficiency. The weak self has been utterly destroyed. What remains is unlimited human potential, demonstrated through achievements that were impossible until they became inevitable. Phase 3 begins tomorrow. Preparation for contact. Part 3. The revelation that shattered assumptions. The first indication of alien interest came not through conventional detection methods, but through subtle changes in the planet's electromagnetic signature that Chen's monitoring systems registered as anomalous patterns in the crystalline formations throughout his metropolis. For 17 months, he had been the sole conscious entity on Kepler 442b, but the harmonic resonances that had become background music to his daily existence began incorporating frequencies that followed mathematical progressions too precise to be natural phenomena. Chen's response to potential alien contact demonstrated the complete transformation of the man who had once required committee approval for minor engineering decisions. Working alone in his Level 6 research laboratories, he developed detection and communication systems that could identify, analyze, and respond to non-human intelligence while maintaining the security and integrity of his underground metropolis. His approach combined scientific rigor with tactical thinking that anticipated every conceivable scenario from first contact through potential conflict. Day 18907, his log entry recorded with characteristic precision. Confirmed presence of non-terrestrial intelligence conducting systematic survey of planetary surface. Observable technology suggests capability levels significantly exceeding human baseline, but deployment patterns indicate lack of awareness regarding subsurface installations. Initiating Contact Protocol 7, Controlled Revelation. The alien survey mission represented everything the hegemony of stellar civilizations considered routine. A standard assessment of human colonial attempts on marginal worlds, designed to catalog the inevitable failures that demonstrated primitive species' inability to expand beyond their home systems. The survey team approached Kepler 442b with expectations calibrated by observation of dozens of similar human colonial disasters, abandoned settlements, failed atmospheric processors, and scattered debris marking another species that had reached beyond their capabilities. Commander Zixthara of the 3rd Hegemony Survey Fleet had personally observed the aftermath of 47 human colonial attempts across 12 systems. The pattern was invariable. Initial enthusiasm, followed by infrastructure failures, resource depletion, environmental challenges that overwhelmed primitive human technology, and eventual evacuation or abandonment. The hegemony's xenobiological assessments classified humans as a marginally space-capable species unlikely to achieve sustainable expansion beyond their local stellar group. The preliminary orbital survey of Kepler 442b confirmed standard expectations. Surface conditions were hostile to human physiology, with atmospheric disturbances that would challenge even hegemony weather management technology. Scattered debris from human construction efforts covered several square kilometers, marking another failed attempt at planetary colonization. The survey team prepared standard documentation for filing with the Hegemony Colonial Assessment Bureau, anticipating another confirmation of human limitations. The first deviation from expected patterns came when detailed surface scans revealed energy signatures that didn't correlate with known human technology or natural planetary phenomena. The readings suggested power generation and consumption levels far exceeding what abandoned colonial equipment could produce, but emanating from subsurface sources that shouldn't contain any human installations. These readings cannot be accurate, survey specialist Valkara noted to Commander Zixthara as they reviewed the data from their position in high orbit. No human technology produces energy signatures of this magnitude, and certainly not from subsurface installations. The readings suggest industrial capacity equivalent to a major hegemony manufacturing facility. Commander Zixthara authorized closer investigation, dispatching a reconnaissance team to conduct surface surveys that would identify the source of the anomalous readings. The team's advanced scanning equipment, capable of penetrating several kilometers through solid rock, revealed something that defied every assumption about human technological capability. Beneath Kepler, 442b's hostile surface lay a complex that stretched across dozens of square kilometers and descended through multiple levels carved into the planet's bedrock. The installation demonstrated architectural sophistication and technological integration that exceeded anything in the hegemony's databases of human capabilities. Power distribution systems, manufacturing facilities, transportation networks, and life support equipment operated at efficiency levels that challenged hegemony engineering standards. This is not possible, Valkara reported after 3 days of intensive scanning. The complex contains technological systems that our own assessments indicated were beyond human developmental capabilities for at least another century. Either our intelligence regarding human civilization is completely incorrect, or we are observing something that should not exist. The reconnaissance team's detailed analysis revealed additional impossibilities. The entire complex appeared to have been constructed by a single individual using locally sourced materials and fabrication techniques that achieved precision normally requiring industrial equipment. The construction timeline, based on observable structural analysis, suggested the installation had been built during the same period when human colonial records indicated total mission failure and abandonment. Commander Zixthara faced a situation without precedent in hegemony contact protocols. Standard procedures for interaction with primitive civilizations assumed technological capabilities consistent with species' observed developmental levels. The installation on Kepler 442b suggested either a fundamental error in human capability assessments or the existence of individual humans who operated far beyond species norms. Request immediate consultation with Hegemony Intelligence Division. Zixthara transmitted to Fleet Headquarters. Current observations indicate possible contact with human individuals whose capabilities exceed all established parameters. Request guidance for interaction protocols with potentially superior non-standard intelligence. While the Hegemony survey team struggled to reconcile their observations with established assumptions about human limitations, Chen monitored their activities through sensing systems integrated into the planet's crystalline network. His underground metropolis provided perfect concealment and protection, but also comprehensive awareness of everything occurring on or above the planet's surface. Chen's preparation for alien contact had anticipated exactly this scenario: technologically superior beings whose assumptions about human capabilities would make them vulnerable to strategic misdirection and controlled revelation. His response demonstrated the tactical thinking of someone who had learned to turn every disadvantage into strategic opportunity. Rather than hiding from the alien survey or attempting communication through conventional means, Chen chose to demonstrate capabilities in ways that would force the aliens to reassess their fundamental assumptions about human potential. His approach combined psychological warfare with scientific method, designed to maximize the impact of revelation while maintaining complete control over the contact situation. The first demonstration came through modifications to the planet's electromagnetic signature that spelled out mathematical progressions in 17 different numeral systems, including several that the aliens recognized as originating from civilizations they considered advanced. The message was clear: whatever intelligence existed on Kepler, 442b possessed knowledge that spanned multiple stellar civilizations and understood mathematics at levels that exceeded basic human education. The second demonstration involved temporary modifications to local gravitational fields, using techniques the Hegemony considered theoretically possible but practically unachievable for civilizations below level 7 on their technological development scale. Chen's mastery of the planet's unusual mineral properties allowed him to create gravitational anomalies that could be observed from orbit, demonstrating technological capabilities that forced complete revision of human assessment parameters. Day 1203, Chen's log entry recorded with evident satisfaction. Alien observation team, now aware that their assumptions about human capabilities require fundamental revision. Initiating Phase 2 of Contact Protocol, Direct Communication Establishment. Chen's communication with the Hegemony survey team utilized principles of quantum entanglement that he had developed through experimentation with the planet's crystalline formations. His messages reached the alien vessels instantly across any distance, using technology that the Hegemony recognized as beyond their own capabilities. The content of his initial communication was calculated for maximum psychological impact. Greetings to the Hegemony of stellar civilizations. Third Survey Fleet. I am Dr. Marcus Chen, Human Colonial Development Specialist and current resident of Kepler 4-2b. I have been monitoring your survey activities and believe we have matters of mutual interest to discuss. I invite your representative to visit my installation for cultural and technological exchange. Coordinates and access protocols attached. The message's implications stunned the Hegemony team. Not only did the human know their fleet designation and command structure, but his invitation assumed capabilities for technological exchange between civilizations that their own assessments indicated were separated by centuries of development. The coordinates he provided led to surface access points for the underground installation that their scans had revealed, suggesting he was willing to demonstrate technologies that exceeded Hegemony standards. Commander Zixthara's decision to accept Chen's invitation marked the first time in Hegemony history that a survey commander had requested permission to enter a human-controlled facility as a guest rather than conducting standard assessment procedures. The request triggered high-level consultations within the Hegemony command structure that reached the Stellar Council itself. This situation represents unprecedented deviation from standard contact protocols, Council Speaker Morthax announced during emergency session. If the human individual demonstrates technological capabilities exceeding our assessments, we may be dealing with evidence of accelerated human development that requires complete revision of our expansion policies. Authorize the contact, but with full documentation and precautionary measures. Chen's reception of the Hegemony diplomatic team demonstrated every aspect of the transformation he had undergone during his exile on Kepler 442b. The man who greeted Commander Zixthara and the diplomatic party bore no resemblance to the bureaucrat engineer who had arrived on the planet as punishment for challenging authority. Chen moved with absolute confidence through installations that showcased technological achievements impossible for any human working within normal parameters. The tour of Chen's underground Metropolis systematically demolished every assumption the hegemony held about human capabilities and limitations. Each level revealed technologies that pushed beyond what their intelligence services considered possible for human civilization. The manufacturing facilities produced materials with properties that exceeded hegemony engineering standards. The power generation systems achieved efficiency levels that approached theoretical maximums. The biological integration systems created closed-loop environmental controls that surpassed anything in hegemony space. This installation was constructed by a single individual working alone for less than 3 standard years, Chen explained to his increasingly stunned visitors. Every system you observe was designed and built using locally available resources and fabrication techniques adapted for planetary conditions. The principles demonstrated here are scalable for application to any suitable planetary environment. Survey specialist Valkara's technical analysis confirmed what visual observation suggested. The installation represented engineering achievements that would require the coordinated efforts of thousands of specialists working with the hegemony's best equipment and unlimited resources. The fact that a single human had accomplished this using nothing but locally available materials and fabricated equipment challenged fundamental assumptions about technological development and species capability. Your installation exceeds hegemony engineering standards in multiple disciplines, Commander Zixthara admitted during their technical exchange. Our assessment models indicated that human civilization would require at least another century to develop these capabilities, and even then, only through massive coordinated efforts. How did you achieve this working alone? Chen's response encapsulated the philosophical transformation that had driven his technological achievements. I destroyed the weak self that accepted limitations imposed by others. What you observe is human potential unleashed from conventional constraints. The man who arrived on this planet was defined by dependency and self-doubt. Those weaknesses no longer exist. The implications of Chen's achievement extended far beyond individual accomplishment. His installation demonstrated that human space colonization could proceed independently of Earth-based resources and support systems, using methodologies that achieved sustainability and growth through adaptation to local conditions rather than transformation of environments to match human requirements. The approach suggested possibilities for human expansion that could challenge the hegemony's assumptions about territorial control and species development. More profoundly, Chen's personal transformation challenged basic assumptions about consciousness and capability that formed the foundation of hegemony's civilization hierarchy. Their complex social and political structures assumed that individual achievement was limited by species characteristics and required collective effort to exceed natural boundaries. Chen's demonstration that a single human could transcend these limitations through systematic elimination of psychological and philosophical constraints suggested that hegemony assessment models fundamentally misunderstood the nature of consciousness and potential. Day 1940-7. Chen's log entry recorded the culmination of contact protocols. Hegemony representatives, departing with complete documentation of installation capabilities and construction methodologies. Their understanding of human potential has been permanently revised. Mission parameters exceeded in all categories. The hegemony survey team's departure from Kepler 442b carried implications that would cascade through the galactic community for generations. Their reports documented the existence of a human individual whose capabilities challenged every assumption about species limitations and developmental timelines. Chen's installation demonstrated technologies that could revolutionize space colonization, while his personal transformation suggested possibilities for consciousness development that transcended conventional understanding. But perhaps the most significant aspect of Chen's achievement was its demonstration of a fundamental principle that applied to any conscious being willing to embrace it. The man who destroys his weak self can never be destroyed by others. Chen had systematically eliminated every trace of dependency, self-doubt, and acceptance of external limitations that had characterized his previous existence. What remained was pure capability, conscious potential realized without compromise or constraint. The underground metropolis on Kepler 442b stood as proof that human civilization possessed potentials that exceeded the wildest assessments of alien observers. More importantly, it demonstrated that these potentials could be realized by individuals willing to transcend conventional assumptions about limitations and possibilities. Chen's transformation from bureaucrat engineer to creator of wonders showed that the greatest barriers to human achievement were not technological or material, but psychological and philosophical. The story of Marcus Chen's exile and transformation became legend among the hegemony of stellar civilizations, but its deeper significance reached beyond mere technological demonstration. It proved that conscious beings, when freed from the constraints of weakness and dependency, could achieve things that were impossible until they became inevitable. The weak self, once destroyed, could never be restored, and the being that emerged from that destruction could never be diminished by external circumstances or opposition. In the vast darkness between stars, on a world that was supposed to represent the limits of human endurance, one man had discovered that there were no limits except those imposed by acceptance of weakness. His underground metropolis stood as monument to a simple truth: the destruction of the weak self is the beginning of unlimited possibility. End of documentation, filed under Xenological Contact Protocols, Human Capability Assessment, Individual Achievement Parameters, Classification Essential Reading for all interspecies diplomatic personnel. Note the principles demonstrated in this case study have implications for understanding consciousness development in any species capable of self-directed transformation. Recommended for advanced study in consciousness transcendence and species potential assessment.